This is the third video in my free-for-all series. Previously, I've talked about a free-for-all at the Kage Summit, among the Kage and their guards, along with the free-for-all during the chunin exam finals. Personally, I think free-for-alls are interesting because it's a change of pace from one-on-ones. It also more favors those that have stamina and endurance, and I like looking at battles in a different perspective. This time I'll be talking about a free-for-all among the 7 Hokage, but with some changes to make this more fair and interesting. If there weren't changes to it, it would just be Hokage, Naruto, and Hashirama fighting while everyone else is nothing compared to their power. The first change I'll be making is using Sage Mode Naruto. He scales down pretty nicely. I wouldn't put him as the favorite, but he still has a good shot to win. KCM1 Naruto is probably too much because of his chakra, durability, and speed. The second change I'll be making is using Warrior Kakashi instead of Hokage Kakashi. I don't believe that Boruto and Naruto should be scaled together, and I also haven't read Kakashi's novel, so I can't include Hokage Kakashi and have this video be accurate. I don't see him having a good shot at winning either way anyway. The last change I'll be making is not including Hashirama. There's nothing I can scale him down to other than his heavily weakened reanimation in part 1, and that version is a retcon anyway, and we didn't see much from it either. So I know it's kind of odd, but these are the changes I'm going to have to make in order to make this video worth making. Otherwise, Hashirama and Madara just destroy everyone else since they are god of shinobi. Anyway, I'll be breaking down how I speculate each Hokage will do in the fight, and then I'll talk about the actual free-for-all. First up is Hashirama. He certainly has a skill set to go the distance in a free-for-all, but he may struggle to win at the end as well. He has massive chakra reserves and Flying Raijin, but I don't see him using Flying Raijin very much defensively. This is because he's mainly only ever used it offensively, really. When he used it in the war, it was either to attack Obito or Madara. When he attacked Madara, his kunai got thrown in the air and he teleported to that to dodge Madara's attack. However, he instantly attacked again when he teleported. This is much different than Minato, who is willing to use Flying Raijin on offense and defense. He teleported away from Obito many times in their fight, and in the war he used Flying Raijin to teleport people away from Obito's attacks several times. There was one time where Hashirama teleported people away from the God Tree, but his overruling tendency is to use it on offense. So I don't see Hashirama wisely using it to evade attacks often. He is tactically the best out of these characters though. One thing that is important in a free-for-all is being adaptable. His intelligence and chakra reserves will help him go far, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to do a lot of damage. Compared to the others, he's lacking in firepower and kill moves. I know he has Tandem Paper Bomb, but that's only used with Edo Tensei, which is a forbidden jutsu. Hashirama used it in the war arc by using his own Edo Tensei, but in this scenario it would be out of character to use a jutsu requiring a human sacrifice. He has Flying Raijin, but if that is shown early on, it'll ruin its element of surprise later on. I'm very confident Hashirama can make it to the end, but I'm not very confident he can win it all. Lastly, the only person he should be familiar with is Hiruzen, since everyone else is after his time. He should know almost everything about Hiruzen except for the Reaper Death Seal. Next is Hiruzen. I'm going to have to use his old version because we don't know how powerful his prime version is. I can already see people furiously typing in the comments, but this is what I'll have to do to keep things balanced. I've made a video talking about prime Hiruzen, but so much of it is speculation that it wouldn't make any sense to include it in this video. People also vary greatly on where they scale prime Hiruzen as well. If Hiruzen is a god of shinobi like some people believe, he would just stomp, and I would have to use a different version like I did with Naruto. So I'll have to use old Hiruzen either way. Old Hiruzen is not a slouch, but I think there is little chance he goes all the way. He simply doesn't have the endurance as we saw in his fight with Orochimaru. However, he can certainly do some damage. He embarrassed Orochimaru during their brief exchange, and landed explosive tags on the reanimations he was fighting. They were still Kage level 2, and he ended up defeating them with the Reaper Death Seal. If he's pushed into a corner, the Reaper Death Seal could theoretically take out at least 3 people. That's what he tried to do originally and managed to seal 2 people. This could also be dangerous if he makes it to the end and decides to stalemate the match. Other than that, he has the advantage of being able to use every chakra nature, and he's also very good tactically. As for his knowledge on others, he should be highly knowledgeable on everyone. Hashirama was his teacher and Tsunade was his pupil. Chidori and Flying Raijin was well known worldwide, so Hiruzen should definitely be knowledgeable on Minato and Kakashi as well. The only person he'll be in the dark about is Naruto. Overall, I expect Hiruzen to make some significant noise, but I not get too far. Next is Minato. This is definitely the person I expect to win it all. I think he's on a higher tier than everyone else, and I'd scale him down if I could. Aside from that, his Flying Raijin and stamina can definitely allow him to go to the distance. Like I said earlier, he's much more likely to use it defensively compared to Hashirama. Defense is very important for winning a free-for-all. He also has large reserves of chakra, considering that he is a sage. Having large chakra reserves is a requirement for learning Sage Mode. He doesn't have the best chakra reserves out of this group, but it should be enough. He also can finish the job at the end if it comes down to a one-on-one. He did beat Obito and had the upper hand against A during their brief encounters. The combination of Flying Rising and his Rasengan is the best kill move in this free-for-all. He can also use the Rebirth Seal if he has to. He should be fairly knowledgeable in everyone except for Naruto. Not too much else to say about Minato other than I put him as the favorite to win it all. Next is Tsunade. I certainly expect Tsunade to go far, and she could even be a dark horse to win if things go her way in the end. The reason I expect her to go far is because of her healing capabilities. When she was fighting Madara, she was literally fighting with Susanoo swords inside her like it was nothing. So killing her is going to be a task for anyone on this list. Any attack that's designed to stab is almost useless against her, considering that she can heal any basic wound. As for her offense, it's also nothing to scoff at. Her punch was able to crack Madara's Susanoo ribcage. No one in this group of fighters has a level of brute defense. This will become a greater advantage as the fight goes on, because it's likely the other characters will begin to wear down towards the end of the fight. This will make it much harder for them to withstand her brute strength. However, her offense is one-dimensional, and she's the worst tactically out there, and I would consider her to be one of the weakest overall as well. As for intel, she should be knowledgeable about everyone except for Tobirama. She certainly has the best arsenal to win it all, so really it's a matter of whether her favorable matchup will allow her to win, or if her inferior skills will make her lose. Next is Warrior Kakashi. I expect him to do the worst, considering that he has the first or second worst stamina out of everyone, and he also generally is the weakest out of this group of fighters. In the war, he does get a major boost in chakra reserves, but this sometimes gets exaggerated. There were times where he went long periods without fighting, and there was even one time where Kurama replenished his chakra. A few uses of Kamui and Chidori will completely exhaust him. It wouldn't be as important as in a one-on-one fight, but in a free-for-all, usually the ones with the best stamina endurance wins. That's why I think Tsunade is a dark horse. Kakashi doesn't have a favorable matchup either. Kamui will be very useful for defense, but will come with a great chakra cost. Chidori is also a great offensive option that comes with a great chakra cost for him. I see him having a difficult time connecting with Chidori though. As for his knowledge of others, he should know about everyone except for Tobirama and Hiruzen. Overall, I don't expect Kakashi to go far because he's one of the weakest out there, and his longevity is lacking. Perhaps his Hokage version could do better, but I explained earlier why I'm not using that. Lastly, there's Sage Mode Naruto in the Pain arc. He has a respectable chance of winning considering the amount of firepower and endurance he has. His Rasen Shuriken can kill anyone in this group if it gets a direct hit. It's also just good to generally use against a summon or another jutsu. The problem is that he can only use this twice before running out of Sage Mode. I'll give Naruto 2 Sage Mode Shadow Clones nearby since that's how many he used against Pain. A maximum of 6 Rasen Shurikens is great, but his stamina is also important. Having Sage Mode gives him the chakra needed to make it to the end easily, and if he paces himself, he can still use his Rasen Shuriken at the end. As for his knowledge, he'll know about Kakashi and Tsunade. Overall, he's generally more middle of the pack, but because of his firepower and endurance, I would expect him to be one of the favorites. So after all that, I can talk about how this free-for-all would go down. I've realized that it would be impossible to decipher how this fight would go if this is not in character. My other videos like this had scenarios that actually could have happened, and having them in character helps decipher where the fight starts at least. This time around, it doesn't make any sense narratively for this fight to happen, so I'll just be saying they're in a simulation. They're all aware of the simulation, but they're all fully incentivized to try and win. Starting with Tobirama, I'd expect him to not be impressed by anyone else except for Tsunade and Hiruzen. When he first saw Minato when they were reanimated, he was very standoffish towards them along with Hashirama. Hiruzen being so old will also seem like an easy, safe target. Hiruzen would probably rather go after someone like Kakashi, considering that he doubted he could beat Orochimaru before their fight. Minato would probably lean towards fighting Tsunade, since her fellow Sannin Jiraiya praised Minato so much. Jiraiya originally believed Minato was the child of prophecy, and even told Naruto once that no one could compare to the 4th Hokage. So if Jiraiya implies to Minato that he's above Sannin level, his safe bet would be taking on Tsunade, since she's a Sannin. Tsunade would probably rather fight Kakashi or Naruto, since from her perspective, those are like her underlings. Naruto is Jiraiya's student, while Kakashi is a jonin under her. She definitely has less respect for them than her predecessors. As for Kakashi, he said Naruto surpassed him before he gained Sage Mode. I think he'd prefer going after Tobirama or Hiruzen, since he doesn't know about them. Kakashi yields to Minato and probably yields to Tsunade as well. And finally, Naruto is always down to fight anybody, although he might favor fighting Kakashi or Tsunade since he's competitive with his peers. So with all that being said, I think I can decipher how this fight will start. Tobirama wants Hiruzen, Hiruzen wants Kakashi, and Kakashi wants the both of them. So those three will break off into their tangent more or less. Minato wants Tsunade, Tsunade wants Naruto, and Naruto doesn't mind taking on the both of them. So they would break off into their tangent as well. This is usually how fights go in Naruto. When the Uchiha and Senju were at war, we commonly saw one-on-ones between Hashirama and Madara, along with Tobirama versus Izuna. All the fights in the Sasuke retrieval arc were also one-on-ones, and the list goes on. There are many ways this fight could start, but this is the most likely based on these characters' tendencies. I'll start with the second, third, and sixth fight. Hiruzen has both the scale and versatility to his jutsu. He and Kakashi have all 5 basic nature transformations, but Kakashi is lacking the scale among these 3. We've seen Hiruzen display his scale when he fought Guru. Kakashi has never shown the same scale, so I wonder if his earth style can even block Tobirama's water style. We've only ever seen Tobirama do a massive water style once, and this is when he was a heavily weakened reanimation in part 1. So theoretically his attack potency would be increased so much that when alive, that Kakashi's earth style wouldn't be enough here. And this is the same case for Hiruzen targeting Kakashi. The one thing Kakashi has is his Kamui, but relying on that too much will deplete his chakra reserves. I can see Kakashi getting pressured early here and trying to go for a kill move with Chidori. The problem is that both of his opponents should be faster than him, along with being at a similar intelligence level. Tobirama could react to Madara at point-blank range at least once, and Hiruzen embarrassed Orochimaru when they briefly had their Kenjutsu scuffle. They're both highly intelligent as well, so I doubt Kakashi could trick them. So really, Kakashi has nothing going for him here, so I'd expect him to lose the first out of these 3. He has no viable kill option, and has the lowest chakra reserves as well. Meanwhile, the other group is also starting their fight. This one is interesting because both Tsunade and Naruto are 2 characters who just like to brawl from the get-go. Minato, on the other hand, is very cautious and observing. When he fought Obito, he didn't really take any risk until he had fully deciphered Kamui. So I expect for Tsunade and Naruto to go straight into it, while Minato simply sits back and watches it first. In terms of strength, Tsunade has done things like crack Madara's Susanoo ribcage, and pin Manda using Gamabunta's sword. As for Naruto, his kit is more than strength, but the only thing we've seen him do is deal with smaller summons than Manda. What he does have, though, is clones and Rasengans. That makes up for the lack of strength and should prolong their fight long enough for Minato to make a move. He's familiar with Tsunade, so he's aware that she knows about the Flying Raijin. Naruto doesn't know about it, though, and so that makes him the perfect target. His Sage Mode danger sensing shouldn't be enough either. Minato showed clear speed superiority over A in their encounter, and A is supposed to be the fastest in the known ninja world. Some people like to argue that A was a Jonin, but to be fair, he was still an adult during that encounter. Naruto didn't surpass A in speed until he had KCM mode, which is a ways away from the Pain arc. We did see Naruto dodge the third Raikage using Sage mode, but like I said, that was when he was stronger in the War arc. And the third Raikage was weakened by the Tensei anyway. So if Minato waits for when Naruto is at a disadvantageous state while fighting Tsunade, he can use Flying Raijin to give a finishing blow. Naruto might not lose this anticlimactically, but I still expect for this to be how he loses. He doesn't know about Flying Raijin, and Minato is far faster than him, considering how they stack up against the Raikage. Minato would definitely use Flying Raijin on Naruto first, and early enough that Tsunade is still in the competition. I'd expect for Naruto to lose a little sooner than Kakashi, so I'll go on back to that fight. Earlier I said that Tobirama could react to Madara, but shortly after that he was defeated. He's not one to ever spam Flying Raijin like Minato, but he certainly can do it occasionally. He uses it more offensively anyway. Hiruzen's familiar with how it works, but can he overcome it? His earth style can counter Tobirama's water style, and his monkey stick is very useful in close quarters combat. As I said earlier, he could quickly disarm Orochimaru, and Tobirama doesn't even have a sword. Flying Raijin also doesn't have its element of surprising its Hiruzen. It would be hard for Tobirama to throw a marked kunai at Hiruzen, without Hiruzen throwing a kunai back to mess up its trajectory. So that only leaves directly marking Hiruzen with his hand. He managed to do this against Ten Tails Obito, but Obito went straight at him and he wasn't expecting it. Hiruzen isn't going to get as close, since he has the monkey stick and should be wary of being marked as well. The problem for Hiruzen is that it's going to be hard for him to use the monkey stick without it getting marked. Tobirama marked Obito after being hit by him, so he could do the same here. Once you get marked, it's basically over for you. Even Ten Tails Obito can do anything to stop Tobirama from constantly abusing that mark during their battle. If Hiruzen decides not to use the monkey stick to counter this, he's taking away his win condition. He can't compete in close quarters combat without it, especially since he'll fatigue faster than Tobirama. He can counter water style, but Tobirama can escape by teleporting away occasionally. Tobirama will respond by making this a close range fight, and the monkey stick does not work here. The Reaper Dust Seal probably isn't that viable against Tobirama either. If Hiruzen motions to grab Tobirama, he'll teleport away, or just create some space. So I'd expect Tobirama to win here, and if he wins quickly enough, he can join in on the other fight. Tsunade is going to have a tough time considering that Madara said she was slower than A, and she's a close range fighter too. So she has no hope of doing anything offensively to Minato. I see him going for a Rasengan and marking her immediately afterwards, just like he did to Minato. She might be able to regenerate from this since she took so much damage from fighting Madara, but she has a limit regardless. Her 100 healings jutsu does not last forever, and she even passed out from overusing it at the end of her fight against Madara. Rasengans do critical damage as well. After Obito was hit by one, his Hashirama cell's arm fell off and he had to concede. Minato will have to use several Rasengans to seal the deal, but this will cost him a noticeable amount of chakra. I expect him to finish before Tobirama finishes up, but not too much sooner than him. He can observe the end of their fight, but nothing too notable will be seen since he knows that Tobirama created Flying Raijin. So this leaves Tobirama versus Minato. I'd expect Tobirama to be a little roughed up, while Minato will have used a good amount of chakra. One thing I should immediately note is that these two can't use the other's marks against each other. Minato can use Tobirama's mark on Obito during the war. Tobirama's water style is not very useful here, because Minato can teleport away attacks as strong as a Ten Tails Bijou Bomb, without complaining about chakra. Tobirama's attack potency doesn't even scratch that, so this leaves close quarters combat and teleporting. Minato has the edge in both of these areas. Tobirama himself said Minato could teleport faster than him, and Minato is presumably only using Flying Raijin level 1, by the way. As for close quarters combat, Minato has a Rasengan, and Tobirama only has a couple of water style jutsus. Tobirama did dodge Madara once, but quickly after that he was defeated. He's not as proficient with Flying Raijin as Minato, so he's not going to use it as liberally. I certainly expect a long battle, but Minato's Flying Raijin level 2 should be far beyond Tobirama's Flying Raijin. Couple that with a Rasengan, and he would defeat Tobirama. Both Tobirama's water style and Flying Raijin is nullified by Minato, so that eliminates both of his win conditions. This means I'd expect Minato to win the free-for-all after expending a majority of his chakra. After looking back at my character breakdowns, the free-for-all went mostly as expected. Although I expected Naruto and Tsunade to do much better, they were unfortunate to have to fight the favorite early on. I would have scaled down Minato if I could have, but this was as scaled down as he could be. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Comment something if you have something to say, and thank y'all for watching, and I guess I'll see y'all next time.